Please be seated. Before we suspended proceedings, we were presented with a motion from Mr. Bush with respect to the Cayman Brac Marina projects. And the motion reads, whereas the Finance Committee members' motion under Standing Order 11 in Cayman Brac at the last meeting of the Honorable Legislative Assembly.
No, that's not right. You're reading it.
I'm reading what I have.
That's the one. No, she got the other one. Has this been circulated now, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, okay, you were given the wrong one. Okay, that's a different matter, as opposed to me reading the wrong one. Whereas the private member's motion under Standing Order 11 in Cayman Brac at the last meeting of the Honorable Legislative Assembly agreed that all such marina projects in Cayman Brac be given similar treatment. And whereas the developers of Dilbert's Marina has now reached crisis stage and is desirous more than ever to develop their marina facilitating the Alexandra Hotel, be it therefore resolved that this Honorable Finance Committee agrees that the marina project in Cayman Brac, known as the Dilbert Marina, inclusive of an appropriate channel, be given the same agreement and approved to be developed as the two marinas approved by the Cabinet of the Cayman Islands on May 27, 2014, one on the north side of Cayman Brac and one on the south side of Cayman Brac. Moved by Honorable W. McKeever Bush, OBE-JP, MLA, and Leader of the Opposition, first elected member for West Bay. Mr. Bush, I have read the motion, and I will humbly admit that I am not the most experienced in this chair, but I am of the view that perhaps the Finance Committee isn't the place for a motion of this sort, given the fact that the Finance Committee is constituted to deal specifically with the appropriations in the schedule, and therefore motions should relate to the matters within the particular appropriation. But even if I am wrong on that point, I don't see how Finance Committee can give approval to two marinas on the same terms as that approved by Cabinet.
Mr. Chairman, the chair is governed by our standing orders, and where that standing orders is weak, then to Erskine Mays. This motion is dealing with policy. It's not dealing with any reduction or increase in government finances. We are now dealing with a head that is a vote that deals with policy. If the committee accepts this resolution, then of course this committee can't, the Cabinet is bound to be cognizant of what this committee has asked it to do or has demanded it to do. Now, I don't hold out much hope for that, because the legislature passed a motion which was amended a couple of times against what I thought I should do, but to be cooperative, the government's request, I agreed with them in Cayman Brac. And the truth is, the timing of the appointment of that committee, which that was demanded, and the terms has yet to be followed. They say the committee is appointed, but it's just been appointed, and I take a dim view of how it was appointed and when this two marinas were granted approval. So it seemed that, what was done, an appointment there was, the grant, the approval was coinciding close enough for certain developments to go forward. Mr. Chairman, I'm one vote, and I don't know that I can convince anybody else because the government is the government. However, I don't see, and you haven't shown me any standing order or anything that the standing orders would be governed by from the finance law, nor the Constitution. So I don't know that if you want to take on and say you reject the tabling of this motion, that's up to you. I can only say I think you're wrong, but that's up to you. That can't stop my questions. My questions will go ahead.
That's fair enough, Mr. Bush.
But I would ask, Mr. Chairman, that you show me where this motion is not permissible.
Mr. Bush, I think I just made reference to the fact that Finance Committee is constituted under sections 6 to 3 and onwards, and it deals specifically with appropriations. And what you are asked, what your motion asks the Finance Committee to do is to give approval to marinas on this, to the Dilbert Marina on the same. I'll read it again. Be it therefore resolved that this Honorable Finance Committee agrees that the marina project in Cayman Brac, known as the Dilbert Marina, inclusive of an appropriate channel, be given the same agreement and approved to be developed as the two marinas approved by the Cabinet. I do not see that as being within the remit of Finance Committee.
And, Mr. Chair, that will go to Cabinet. As any motion you pass here will go to Cabinet. And I don't need anyone to tell me if we have passed motions before in Finance Committee where things have not reduced the expenditure or increased it. And government then effects the,
But the motion doesn't mention anything about increasing or reducing expenditure. It says give approval to marinas.
And that's what I'm saying. That then, the only thing that we can't do, the only thing that a member on this side can do is to increase. We can move a motion to decrease, but we can't increase. A minister can move for the increasing, so I can move a motion to decrease. This is not what it's all about. This is a policy matter which I'm asking the House to agree that that this committee agrees, Mr. Chairman, that Cabinet do this thing. And so, and that's what I'm asking the House the committee to agree that Cabinet will do this thing.
But Mr. Bush, my question to you is, sir, as an experienced legislator, why is it Finance Committee, as opposed to the House, why is it that Finance Committee is being asked to give approval to something for Cabinet to act, as opposed to you bringing this motion during when the House is in?
Well, no. Mr. Chairman, and that's a fair enough question. I could easily ask the House to do so. I could, but I can also ask Finance Committee. At least that's my position.
So if I did not accept this motion at this time, I would not be denying you of your right, because you could still bring it during when the House is in.
Well,
when the House is sitting.
You would be denying my right at this present time. But that's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
But you would still be able to bring it within a matter of.
I can, and if not approved here, it won't stop. It won't end. No, well, you can't. I can't beat it. I can't bring it unless I can't bring it when the House resumes, unless the Speaker moves the standing orders for me. And I might try that, because I am not giving up on this, because this is an atrocity. Hear what I'm telling you? This is favoring, they're the one pointing their fingers, always pointing their fingers about who's helping who in this country. And this is helping a particular developer as against our own. That's what I see. And maybe best go to the House where I can talk, really get into it. But I can ask questions here this afternoon. I'm going to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Bush. Thank
And
you.
I'm withdrawing it, though, and you all got to say that you all rejecting it.
Mr. Bush, I'm at this time not accepting the motion as proposed, because I don't think that Finance Committee is the appropriate place for this motion, nor do I think that Finance Committee has the authority to approve what is being asked. We will now proceed to consider the appropriations for the Minister of Finance,
No.
Financial Services, the Minister of Financial Services, Commerce and Environment.
All right, Mr. Chairman. Let's get into this matter, if you may, on the matter of the environment.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
No, I'm not chairing the meeting, but I'm a member of the meeting, in case you didn't know, Mr. Koo. Yeah, you seem to be blinded somehow. I am a member, and I am asked. I'm putting the chairman on notice that I am going to ask questions.
That's fair enough, Mr. Bush. That's fair enough.
You know that. All right, then what are you complaining about if you know that? You're blind and dumb?
Turning now to consider appropriation FSC 13, Environmental Services and Research, $2,814,877, found on page 162 of the annual plan and estimates. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Bush?
Mr. Chairman, did the Cabinet approve the Coastal Works license for the two marinas in Cayman Brack, one on the north side and one on the south side?
Mr. Pannon?
Mr. Chairman, before I respond, I wonder if it would be useful for us, given that we have a number of staff members sitting here still, and I imagine there's going to be a protracted series of questions here, if we could deal with some other matters to allow the staff to depart back to.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I think so, yeah.
Mr. Pannon, that's acceptable to us, yes. Which one were you proposing, Mr. Pandan?
On the basis of representations, Mr. Chairman, I'm not quite sure whether that suggestion is going to be that helpful after all, but
Huh?
I never expected that, so. Should I send them?
Yeah, Mr. Pandan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would the member from West Bay restate that question so that I have it in full detail?
Oh, I see what you've done. I didn't realize. So you're sending them home, and you can continue with this? Oh, okay. That was on page what, Mr. Chairman?
That's on page 162, Mr. Bush, 162.
Okay. 6 said,
I had said 6 originally, or as long as we have a quorum.
Mr. Chairman, I thought I asked the member if he would kindly restate his question so that I have complete clarity on it.
yes, Mr. Chairman, I was trying to find the page of the relevant vote. Page.
Page 162. 162.
Mr. Chairman, I asked the minister whether the cabinet approved the coastal work license for the two marinas in Cayman Brack, one on the south side and one on the north side. The one on the north side being in a marine park.
Mr. Chairman, there were two recent applications, coastal works applications, for facilities which could be described as marinas. These facilities were applied for in conjunction with ultimately some upland development. I am not sure whether those developments have in fact gone through, in the Brack's case, the Development Control Board. But those two applications were considered in accordance with the normal coastal works policy and process and procedure, and they were approved subject to conditions.
Mr. Chairman, I have the letter of approval. Now, and I'll deal with the South Marina first, Mr. Chairman, which is Block 95E, Parcel 13, Rem 1, which is a dock to be constructed covering about 6,000 square feet of ocean bottom. That is about 521 feet east and west, and north and south about 200 feet. This is a large work. It's bigger than the Port Authority dock in Cayman Brack, and long in one point for the Royal Water Pier. So it is a huge project, excavating about close to 12,000 cubic yards from over 2 acres of the sea bottom, covering some close to 800 or 8,000 square feet of sea grass that has to be removed. What was the, can the minister say what was the square footage cost? How much per cubic yard, first of all, that works out to be? What is the cost?
Mr. Chairman, I am not sure I understand the member's question when he says, what was the cost?
Mr. Chairman, every
Are you referring
license
to, are you referring to the
carries,
fees?
wait, every,
Only trying to
every,
clarify for you, sir.
well, you asked, I'm trying to clarify. Every license carries a fee, a royalty, if you may, that is paid to government. And so that's what I'm asking. What is that? What is the amount of that royalty, if you want to call it royalty? I called it a fee or cost, but it's the same thing. For the 12,000 cubic yards, 11,977 cubic yards. How much per cubic yard is it being cost?
Is the question understood? I think I understood what
I
he's
think
saying.
the question from the member, Mr. Chairman, is what were the fees agreed by Cabinet in connection with that particular application? The royalty fees, the monitoring fees, that sort of thing.
I think he's trying to take it one step further in not only what is the total fees received, but how much is that per cubic yard? I think that was your question, right? How much is
I'm
it
asking
per
what
cubic yard?
what is it per cubic yard that
Yeah.
government received for the royalty? If they're receiving, if the 11,977 cubic yards, then tell us how much that what they got and how much that works out to be.
So in other words, divide one figure by the next.
We'll get it in a minute.
You get it. Geniuses.
Glad it's recognized. Mr. Chairman, the total license fees charged in connection with that application, the approval of that application. Sorry, 1 second, Mr. Chairman. This is...
Maybe an easier question for them is to ask the director on what
No,
basis
I
did
have
she
the-
approve, on what basis did the director approve this
The director doesn't
license?
approve the application, sir. The director makes recommendations. Sorry, the Department of Environment
Did not
makes
approve,
recommendations.
did the department improved?
Mr. Chairman, in response to the member's specific question on the fees, the amount of the fees, aggregate amount of the fees, is the sum of CI dollars 356,843.
So that's that little bit less than $30 a square foot, cubic yard, sorry. That's for the south side.
That is for the South Side Marina.
And they're removing nearly 12,000
application.
cubic yards. And commercially, that goes for about $40 a cubic yard. So we can see how much Mr. Finance Minister government is gaining on that.
But that, just to be clear, that's a combination of the royalty, mitigation, and admin and monitoring fees.
How much, yes. I don't know if they can ever come up with that, but how much seagrass is being removed from the south side?
No. Let me see it. Let me see it.
Can it move?
Mr. Chairman, I think I would have to refer to the specific extract in order to confirm that. However, I believe that the royalty number is in the region of 65,000, 64,800, and somewhere thereabouts.
Mr. Chairman,
He's 64,800, approximately 65,000. Yes, sir. Mr. Bush?
Sorry, one second. That may be incorrect. That may be just for one of the headings. I believe it's actually probably somewhere in the region of 124,685. But as I said, Mr. Chairman, I would have to refer specifically to the extract to be certain.
Mr. Chairman, on what basis did the cabinet approve this matter, and why were they not asking, with the magnitude of the project, bearing in mind that it's going down 12 feet, I understand, that's the proposed project, 12 foot deep. What are the outlines? What is the agreement? Bearing in mind that they have not asked, requested. In fact, I think all this is being done without the consideration of an environmental impact study. I want to find out, how did the Department of Environment come to that agreement?
Mr. Chairman, there are a number of points, questions raised. First of all, the application was for dredging to a depth of 8 feet, not 12 feet. So, secondly,
You better look at what planning got.
secondly, the application is in respect of an area that has already been dredged in the past. So it is not a pristine, original state marine environment. The application was considered in the same way that all other applications are considered. A detailed set of drawings and the appropriate application form is submitted. The Department of Environment will review the application, and in this case, felt that they understood what the potential impacts were going to be, felt that because the proposal was in an area which had already been the subject of dredging, that they could predict what the impact was, but they also recommended approval subject to certain conditions which Cabinet followed. One of those conditions was to avoid dredging and removing the seagrass beds right up against the shoreline part of the rationale there is to protect the integrity of the shoreline, to avoid any sort of erosion which might come about as a result of those seagrass beds that are against the edge of the shoreline being removed.
Mr. Chairman, didn't they feel that if that was the case, didn't they feel that however many feet away from the shoreline, this is a long canal that they got to have to dredge in there all the same, that it's the same reason why they said that they were scared that the Dilbert's Marina opening up in the rocks where that's proposed would flood the whole West End. That's what I heard. They don't think that opening up where they're opening would cause the same flooding? Alden, you don't know nothing about sea.
Mr. Chairman, the representation there is completely inaccurate. There is no substance to that point, in that this does not involve breaching the ridgeline, the storm ridge on the shoreline, and going inland as the other proposal, the other application does.
Mr. Chairman, I never heard more cockamamie answers in my life.
Perhaps that's what you call it, sir, but I'm being honest with you.
Well, I don't know about being honest. I don't know if you being if you telling your story or this is department story. Which one?
I'm giving you.
You giving me your version.
I'm giving you the facts, sir.
You giving me that you want to give it. That's what you're doing.
They may be inconvenient for you, but
Maybe you should make the department head answer, so see whether she can tell. I'll get verbatim her feelings.
Gentlemen, if we could just keep it to the questions and answers.
Mr. Chairman, so the Department of Environment has determined that there should not be any environmental impact study on either of these, north and south. And to get to the north is in a marine park. I guess that was dredged too. But anyway, let me hear what they got to say, Mr. Chairman. Both of them have been determined that there don't need to be an environmental impact study, although the north one is in the marine park.
Mr. Fallon?
Mr. Chairman, through you, the two applications in respect of the proposals that the member is referring to, did not, in the view of the Department of Environment, necessitate an environmental impact assessment in order to ascertain what the potential impacts would be in relation to the marine environment for those applications. The department was of the view that those applications were on a scale which they could well understand and predict. Of course, the south side was in a zone, in an area which had already been dredged. So the impacts there would have been known, and as I said earlier, would not have been a pristine marine environment. So their recommendation was that an EIA would not have been necessary in those two applications. And Mr. Chairman, in fact, members who have been in Cabinet will certainly know that there are many applications under the Coastal Works Policy which do not attract an environmental impact assessment.
And they have determined that there shouldn't even be a breakwater on the north side. Am I right?
Mr. Chairman, could the member repeat what he was questioning?
I said on the north side they determined, that is in a marine park. So that's one. Two, the Department of Environment determined that there shouldn't even be a breakwater there on the north side, even though there's a 32-foot wide unprotected channel breaching that shoreline, coming out into that marine park.
Mr. Chairman, that application does not involve breaching the storm ridge.
Which one?
The North Coast application that you were questioning me on, sir, does not involve breaching the storm ridge. The application relates to a basin within the Iron Shore Marina, the Iron Shore of the property itself, which is owned by the applicant. So it does not involve cutting through a road, does not involve going up across any storm ridge. It is purely a channel coming in through the Iron Shore, and I believe there may be,
That's the
there is an adjacent facility where the old, what's it called, What?
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if the minister knows what was submitted to planning. What is submitted to planning? Do he understand what is submitted to planning? That there are 2 inland basins being created, 1 swimming lagoon, 1 marina basin approximately 150 feet times 375 or by 375 feet. Supporting piles being driven into the sea bottom for docks, buoys, and moorings. 32-foot wide unprotected channel breaching the shoreline with no breakwater. 5,764 square feet of sea bottom being dredged. 24,820 cubic yards inland being excavated. Blasting, jackhammering will certainly be required. And this is known in an area as the most popular diving area on the island, where the MV Keith Tibbetts, Cayman Brack's #1 attraction, 800 feet away, and the Preacher's Barge, 450 feet away. They are the most popular dive sites. Dredging will begin within the marine park, 5,750 square feet being dredged. Blasting is within 500 foot of a public area and graveyard. Blasting within 500 feet of the graveyard.
Mr. Bush, is it maybe
I'm
have
asking Mr. Chairman if the minister knows that that's what the application is all about to planning.
is it? Are we able to get a copy of the document?
Mr. Chairman,
I'm giving figures from the planning document. Easy for him to get.
Mr. Chairman,
He should have got that.
just to clarify, the member has been asking about the Coastal Works application. Obviously, I would have, as Minister responsible for environment, I would have specific knowledge of that. I would not necessarily know the extent of the application, which is inland, which is within the purview of the Development Control Board in Cayman Brack. But I will point out that the dredging that the member is referring to, in terms of 20,000 cubic yards or whatever it is, that is all excavations within the individual's property, not on the seabed. The only thing that relates to the seabed is a channel which is approximately 144 feet long by approximately 30 feet wide, and it is not going from 0 down to 11 feet. It is just removing sufficient material so that there is an 11-foot depth of the channel coming in. In other words, the water depth up to the shoreline, if that is 5 feet, for example, then the removal of any material at the shoreline would only be 6 feet.
Miss.
Yes. We do, Mr. Chairman, to the member from Northside, we do have all of that information. The plans, very detailed plans were submitted in connection with the Coastal Works application.
Mr. Chairman, since these plans were detailed, can he table these plans? Don't ask about we can't see them. We talking about them. You telling us what these details that you have. I'd like to see them. How many square foot or cubic yards is going to be dredged out, Mr. Chairman, from the north side? They're going into this marine park now, you know. I heard they always skimming the bottom. Boy, they can really come up with some excuses.
Mr. Chairman, I am advised that the calculated area of material that will be removed, or is proposed to be removed, in connection with that channel will be 770 cubic yards. 773, pardon me.
773 cubic yards. 32 foot wide, going out how many?
It is
Mr. Chairman,
30 feet wide by approximately 144 feet.
Mr. Chairman, can the minister say how much they're charging for the royalties there?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have the specific information on the royalties. The number that I have is for the overall fees, including the royalties, which is CI 65,216.
Can I say they're not getting a good deal? I don't call it sweetheart or what, but I know somebody getting a good deal. Mr. Chairman, what if he's saying
Mr.
it's only
Chairman,
30 feet or 32 feet wide? Is it 32 feet wide or 30 feet wide? Whatever. What is the width of the channel, and what is the depth that the actual sea bottom will be dredged?
Mr. Chairman, as I said before, the channel will be 30 feet wide, and it is proposed to be carried to the 11-foot contour. So it will be leveled out to the 11-foot contour. But going back to the question on the fees, let me just say that there are standard calculations which are relied on by the Department of Environment, depending on the potential, on the impact, and depending on whether these are areas which are regarded as pristine environment and an original state marine environment, as opposed to areas which have been dredged previously, for example. So those areas which have been, let's say, compromised in the past will attract much lower fees than those areas which are regarded as being in a pristine state.
So you're saying getting more on the north side then, because there was no dredge in there?
Not more in absolute terms, but the calculation would have, in relation to the per cubic yard or per square yard, would have been higher than it would have been for the south side.
And, Mr. Chairman, explain what he's talking about, the depth that they're going down. That's what I'm interested in, not if they're going, if there's 10 feet of water or 8 foot of water, how far are you going down in the Queen's bottom?
Mr. Chairman, the channel is proposed to go out from the shoreline to the 11-foot contour. In other words, where the sea bottom is normally around 11 feet, that is the extent of the channel being dug. So effectively, towards the shoreline, you're going to have much more material being removed, because the shoreline, as I said earlier in my example, if the depth of the actual water is 5 feet at the edge of the iron shore, they're going to go down 6 feet there, and if 3/4 of the way out, they may be only going down 2 feet.
But up against the iron shore, the removal of the iron shore, they'll go down to 11 feet. Because they got to break the iron shore to get in, right? To get into the lagoon.
Yeah, so within the marina, I think it's proposed to be, I imagine it would be at least 11 feet within the marina as well.
Marina.
But that is within the property of the applicant.
And the director is satisfied that this marina being built out into this marine park is the right thing. I mean, that's good for the environment. And that's why she has approved it. I'm asking the director a direct question. Knowing what we know about where MV Keith Tibbetts is and the other dive sites, because this sets a benchmark, I hope she understands, for what is good all around. I hope they understand that.
Mr.
The
Chairman,
precedent that is being set.
Mr. Chairman, the point is, and the member will know this, that every application is treated on its own merits.
Yes.
And I don't see this, I don't agree with his suggestion that it is a precedent, but I will let the
No, you wouldn't.
I will let the director respond to his other questions.
Ms. Ebanks-Petrie, could you please state your full name and title for the record?
Yes, sir. Gina Ebanks-Petrie, Director, Department of Environment. Mr. Chairman, through you, I think the question was in relation to whether the Department of Environment was happy, quote unquote, that the channel was being dredged in a marine park environment. I think everyone in the chamber is aware that any work in the seabed, and particularly in a marine park, will have environmental impacts. The point is here that this application is in a location in the lee of the existing Scott's Jetty, which is also in the marine park. That is one of the reasons why we felt that there was no requirement for a breakwater, because the Scott's Jetty actually naturally provides that in that location. The channel is in itself not very long. It's about the length of a typical dock, so 144 feet. The water is already deep in that location. It's not a shallow lagoon environment. It's already deep water offshore. So on balance, the Department of Environment felt that if Cabinet in its decision-making process weighed the economic and other impacts as positive, that the environmental impacts of the application could be, or the project could be offset and mitigated through payment. And that is what we recommended.
Mr. Chairman, I hear the director. I've heard her before too, and the opposing side. Mr. Chairman, is this project on the west side of the Scott Dock?
Yes, it is.
So if the sea comes in from the east side, the weather comes in from the east side, it's all right. If it comes in from the west side, where's the breakwater? And why haven't you asked for a breakwater? If the weather comes in from the west, what kind of protection do anybody down there have?
Mr. Chairman,
The cemetery, or anything else?
Mr. Chairman, through you, I think if the channel in question was thousands of feet long and 100 or more feet wide, that there may be some, the department may have concluded that there would be some impact that would have needed to have been mitigated by way of a breakwater. But the fact of the matter is that the channel is very short. There is, as I mentioned already, deep water offshore, and there's nothing now to mitigate the impact of that deep water accessing the shoreline. This channel is not, in our view, going to cause any greater impact to the inland area than what already exists in that location.
And the one on the south side?
Mr. Chairman, through you, there is a significant difference between this channel and the channel in the south side. The channel in the south side is quite a distance out to sea. The applicant actually hasn't provided that level of detail, so there's no length for the channel that has been provided. He's given a drawing, which is a sketch. It is not scaled. At least I've not seen a scale drawing. But he has indicated that the channel width would be at least 100 feet. And to us, that is a significant. We do know that the channel crosses the fringing reef and goes into the lagoon as well. So it is quite a distance offshore. We just don't know the exact length.
But yet you all don't know all this, but you all went and agreed on it.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify that, the agreement, the conditional approval or the approval in principle for the application by Mr. Dilbert was conditional on an environmental impact assessment being carried out precisely for this sort of reason, because we needed to understand exactly what the potential impacts were. And in conjunction with that, a lot more work would have to be done. A lot more detailed plans would need to be submitted.
That's the one.
Okay. There's no.
No. Mr. Chairman, if we could just clarify from the member, when he says, or he said earlier in his question, the south side marina, or south side, the other one on the south side, is he referring to the Dilbert project, or is he referring to
No, I'm not to the Dilbert project. I'm
the
talking about the one that...
No, there's no channel there, sir. There's no channel through the reef or through any shoreline in connection with that, other than an access through the normal channel that exists at present within the protected lagoon.
But nevertheless, there is, in that lagoon, your total excavation is close to 2.5 acres of excavation of the seabed. Cleveland's was, or the Dilbert's was 1.5 acres if they were 100 foot wide. And if they were 75 feet wide, it would only be 1.15 of an acre, 50 feet long. It would only be 0.76 of an acre if they went 50 feet. But you all never considered none of that because the Department of Environment took a position against this, and new minister took a position against it from the beginning. He didn't support it from the beginning. And he had no intention of supporting that from the beginning.
Mr. Chairman.
No matter, and then you went and charge these people for nothing.
I want the record to show that there was an approval in principle given to the application that the member from West Bay is referring to. It was subject to a condition that an environmental impact assessment be carried out. So far, that condition has not been satisfied.
Not been satisfied because it's not fair, Mr. Chairman, to charge Cleveland that money that Cleveland has to pay. The Dilberts have to pay. He got to pay for the removal of the road. He got to pay for the building of the new road, and they're asking him to do an environmental impact study. I don't care what the director come here and say. We know what our things have done Cayman Brack. We know the surrounding area. We know what's close by. So she can fix the story. Put it that way. She can fix it so that it coincides with what her minister wants, but that doesn't make me believe that it's the right thing and that they're doing the right thing and that they're treating the Dilbert's marina or the Dilbert's application fairly. They're not treating it fairly.
Mr. Chairman,
there's been too many shenanigans.
because it's a matter of public record, and the Coastal Works review from the DOE in connection with the Dilbert application can be obtained from the DOE, because the policy of the DOE is not to put in place any obstacles in terms of transparency and access to information by the public. That can be obtained. It was obtained by the press in the past, and that review will clearly demonstrate that the recommendation was not to consider the application in relation to the Dilbert Marina because of the very substantial risk and potential, very substantial impacts that were anticipated that could not be mitigated in any way. Nevertheless, Cabinet went against the recommendation and approved it in principle, subject to the environmental impact assessment being carried out, because it was appropriate and reasonable for Cabinet to at the same time.
You said you were not in support of it. You told him from that
Mr. Chairman, if the member doesn't want me to respond, I won't respond.
Mr. Bush,
Mr. Chairman, I'm sick of hearing the nonsense stories. He can stop. Because they're only telling half stories. Listen,
Mr. Chairman,
we know what you all did. We know what you did. We know how they operated with with the application. We're talking about what DOE is talking about, Mr. Chairman. We know. We know they talk about turtle was laying eggs after what legs and where turtle lay eggs on the beach, up on rocks. No, they lay on the beach. It's more down there, Mr. Chairman. That's another thing. Where they are going down there on that piece of beach where they just bought. Where they're going, that's where the turtle nesting is taking place. That's where the turtle nesting is taking place. None of that is taken into consideration. None of that is talked about by the Department of Environment because they do not support Cleveland. They did not support us removing the designation of that stink pond being protected. They didn't support us, but more than half of Cayman Brack did, if not all of them. Only them that some of them that like Moses and how to get to his shop.
Let us continue with the questions and answers.
I ain't got no more questions, Mr. Chair, not on this one.
Okay. Are there any further, Captain Eugene?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, through you, I think the minister said that the channel was 140 feet by 32 feet or 30 feet.
In respect of the north side,
North side I'm talking about.
Coastal Works, yes, 144 feet by 30 feet.
Well,
And that, as I said, is not indicative of the volume of material. That is just indicative of the dimensions of the channel.
yeah, I understand that, but that's really what I'm getting at. I mean, nobody can convince me that on the north side, where there's always a surge, that a 30 or 32-foot channel is going to be adequate. I know the minister has a boat. It's probably 16, 17 feet wide. I have one that's 19 feet wide, and I certainly wouldn't want to try to go into that channel with any kind of a surge. I think it's useless for anybody to even consider cutting a 32-foot channel on the north side to get into a marina. It's going to be total chaos.
Mr.
For
Chairman,
one thing, two boats can't pass in that. Second thing is, it's going to be always so rough, you're not going to be able to use it. So what's the purpose?
Mr. Pannon?
Mr. Chairman, we're talking about a facility which is in conjunction with a proposed upland development, which will not be, it is not proposed to be a full-service, large vessel marina. It is essentially a docking basin for smaller vessels. So obviously, the member from SB, Captain Ebanks, is correct. Neither he nor I would be taking our boats in there. Most people will not, who have any boats of any significant size, would not be going in there. Those are boats, I think, they indicated would be around the range of 30 feet or thereabouts. Yeah, you can go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. But I thought the whole idea of creating some kind of a facility in the BRAC would be to be a stimulus to the economy. If you're not going to get boats that are going to generate some revenue for the island, then I just don't see what's the point in doing it. I mean, lots of Cayman boats would love to go over there. I would love to go over there. And I'm sure the minister himself would like to go over there. And when we're there, obviously we're going to spend money on whatever. But to get a facility like this is total, in my honest, humble opinion, it's not worth it. It's useless.
To me, I'd like to make one observation. Not only the quantity of the fill, but the effect on this environment that they were supposed to be protecting. That nobody else can get anything, and anytime you try to do anything, you were doing something wrong. Yet they're going into the marine park, talking about the protecting from the Scots dock that they try to stop. And if you get weather coming from the west, then it's not protected.
Mr.
Or west or northwest, yeah, it's not protected.
Mr. Pannon?
Mr. Chairman, I know there weren't any specific questions there, but there were a number of points made. But I would just say that facility that we're talking about on the north coast of Cayman Brac was not described as a facility which was going to be an all-singing, all-dancing, full-size, full-service marina. It was a facility which could service small boats in the local waters, Cayman, Little Cayman, Cayman Brac, and the perhaps owners who, if the upland development that's proposed, for example, includes condo development, those dock facilities would be available to them, just like any other development might have had a dock or docking facilities. So that isn't the purpose of that particular marina. I'd also say that certainly Captain Eugene, I doubt the first elected member from West Bay would necessarily know for sure, but the prevailing wind is out of the east and southeast, northeast and southeast in that range for 90-95% of the year. So obviously that facility will be protected, both in terms of the fact that it's slightly in the lee of both the Scots jetty that comes out and that sort of compass range that I mentioned.
Good thing we allow the Scots dock then. Mr. Chairman, my last observation on this particular matter is this. I am not here objecting to any development to go to Cayman Brac. We all know how much money government Cayman is pouring into Cayman Brac. We all know and recognize the amount of work that needs to be done in Cayman Brac to keep Cayman Brac going. Anything that can be done. What I am complaining about is the duplicitousness of the whole thing. And it is just so much in this country by those purveyors of good governance. And those that butter can't melt in their mouth. That's what I am complaining about in this country, where it's good for one but not good for the next. And excuses are found for what they want to do. Whether they're auditing the governor or whether they're digging out the Queen's bottom. They're finding good excuses for it.
Mr. Chair, we're familiar with the members' substance over process arguments in the past, but there are procedures and processes that are followed,
Yeah, right.
and decisions are made in accordance with proper processes and procedures.
It's finagled.
Finagled that. I reject that notion altogether.
You reject
It is properly dealt with.
Mr. Miller, you have a question, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just need some clarifications for my own edification. What is the exact royalty per square foot that is charged on the South Marina, and what is charged on the North Marina?
I believe in the questions earlier, I acknowledged that I didn't have the specific numbers in respect of the royalty for either one at this point. I can give you that information.
Okay, but you did indicate in some of your answers that there is normally a differentiation if you're going to dredge which has already been dredged versus dredging, I think you call it pristine marine environment. What is that differential factor? Since you indicated these are accepted formulas that are documented and established, what is that differential?
Mr. Chair, through you, that is correct. There are different multipliers used in respect of some of the fee calculations. The multipliers are typically utilized, utilized in respect of a number for the areas that have already been, let's say, compromised or dredged, and then there's a higher number. The typical for the higher number, the multiple is usually around $10 for the pristine marine environment, and for the lower number, the range is usually around $2 to $4.
Through you, Mr. Chair, when you also indicated, you said the south side has already been dredged. What was the purpose of that dredging, and why does it now need to be re-dredged for marina purposes?
I think so. Probably predates all of us. Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Panel.
I don't have any specific knowledge of my own. I suspect that it was done before the director was involved with the DOE as well. No? Well, perhaps we'll hear from the director then.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I believe that this particular dredging took place just at about the same time as I joined the DOE in the early 80s. And my recollection is that it was done to provide navigation up through that lagoon.
That's what I recalled as well. Because my concern is that how soon, if we're opening this thing up the size it is now, how soon is this marina, this basin that we dig, likely to be filled in to where it needs to be dredged again? And where is the material going to come from to fill it back up? Because I would assume that the reason we got to redredge it now is because the tides and stuff that move the material that exists there around is what has clogged up. Because if I remember, it had something to do with when I think with Channel Through the Reef was done the same time when it went up to the hotel or something, so they dive boats up. But the question is how long is this new marina likely to exist before it needs to be redredged again, and where do you anticipate the sand or whatever that's going to fill this back up is going to come from?
It's gonna happen.
We don't have an exact estimate, but we did consider this as part, Mr. Chairman, through you, sorry. We don't have an exact estimate. We did consider this, and given that our best estimate of the date, we don't actually have a file on this excavation, just from recollection, was that it was, almost 30 years ago. We're anticipating, that it would take at least that long again. And one of the reasons that we made the recommendation to pull the dredging back from the shoreline was to try to mitigate the impact of loss of beach sand. So basically, we're trying to ensure that the beach sand itself doesn't end up filling the excavated basin. But the sand will come from sources that are linked to the reef
Within
system.
the reef and not
Yes.
similar to what's happened at Rum Point.
Yes, that
They
are
dug it down
linked
and
into the reef
marine
system.
area is going to come back and fill it in. But as I recall, the channel that went up there was a fairly narrow channel. So there's going to be a large area that is going to be pristine here. Have you separated the fee for this marina from what the channel was to what the marina is going to be, and are we charging them the higher price for the larger area other than this? Because as I remember going up there, fishing and stuff, you came in the reef, and it was a fairly narrow channel that you went up to the dock, if I got the right area. I don't have the plans before me, but I would assume, my memory, that's the general vicinity where this now substantial basin is going to be built for boats.
Mr. Chairman, through you, we actually used aerial photography to look back in time, and in fact, the basin is proposed within the area, as best we could tell, that had already been dredged, previously been dredged.
Or area that has been affected by the channel filling in? Because I don't recall them having a dredge like what they did Rum Point, a suction dredge that dredged a huge area. If I recall, that was done with excavators, and it was a fairly defined and narrow channel you had it, because I remember going up through there. If it was, like Captain Eugene said, if it was two boats coming, you had a problem. Bow and Storm were going to hit.
Well, I was up there 2 weeks ago.
I was there doing the channel.
He dug the channel, right? But because one of the questions is this marina, this basin that we're digging out, is this going to be an offshore facility with docks in it for tie your boats on, or are you just providing anchorage inside the reef, and they're going to be docks that overlap this area that you're protecting between the shore and the dredged area? How are customers going to get from their boats to shore?
What is proposed in accordance with the plans which have been submitted is a central walkway going out to a parallel dock, which is, I think, about 50 to 75 feet offshore. I don't remember the exact specification, off the beach. And boats will then essentially back up to that dock and tie on. There will be mooring buoys for a bow line out front. So basically, that is typically what you would refer to as Mediterranean-style mooring, where in order to save dock space or to improve the amounts of boats that you can get on a particular dock, you moor on a buoy at the bow of the boat and back up and tie on your two stern lines.
Do you have the dimensions of the channel that is going to go to the dredged area from the, like, because you're going to use the existing channel in the reef, right? And what's the depth of the water in that channel in the reef now?
I can only tell you from my own experience. As I said, I was there two or three weekends ago. The channel has varying depth. I think its maximum depth is 11 or 12 feet. I think that at the front end, the entrance to the channel, I've observed a water depth of around 9 feet.
But the marina is going to have 11 feet in it.
8 feet.
8 feet.
8 feet. So you don't anticipate that the next request, having gotten the marina inside and having 11, 12 feet in the channel existing, that the next request is going to be both to enlarge and deepen the channel, because that's not an easy channel to get in and out, and to deepen the water inside the marina to take boats bigger than deep with draft more than 6 feet, because in that sand you don't want no more. You want at least 2 feet between your props and the water.
Mr. Chair, through you, I have no reason to anticipate, or we have no reason to anticipate that there will be any change to or any further application in connection with deepening the water around this proposed dock, which we're referring to as a marina. But as I said earlier, it's not proposed as a full-service marina, but it will cater to boats in the region of 50 feet long. Certainly the channel going into this lagoon, which is referred to as, I have to say officially, Dick Sessinger Bay, and that was not something that I was ever aware of, but
What?
Dick Sessinger Bay is what
Never heard of it.
it's called. And you and I were there. I hadn't heard of that before, but that's what it's called. And the BRAC channel, the channel going in there, is a difficult channel. There have been attempts in the past to improve the channel, and certainly government, I think, would not have any objection in principle to a proposal to improve the channel. I'm not necessarily talking about widening the channel to any extent. I'm really talking about properly marking it and perhaps improving the consistency of depth in the channel.
One last question for me, sir. You said that the marina is being designed to take up to 50-foot boats.
Mr. Chair, through you, that is that's a representation made in connection with the application.
And what is the length from the dock to the other side? Because as I recall, you have the reef, and then you have a lot of sandbanks and coral inside, and you can dig a channel up on the inside and then dig a basin. What are the dimensions of the basin around the dock?
I'd have to refer to the specific plan, Mr. Chairman, but just to clarify, the water depth in that area ranges, I think, from about 4.5 feet to around 7.5, probably perhaps as much as 8 feet. So we're not actually, we're talking about cleaning up and improving the consistency of depth as opposed to very substantial excavations in that area. Mr. Chair, from the plan submitted, the basin itself is approximately, has dimensions of 192 feet.
Think you can need that for 50-foot boat in 15 knot wind, can you, G? If she got in a superstructure at all and you got 15, 20 knot wind.
So just to clarify, from the,
We're not talking about
Parallel docks in.
and
This has two docks.
center console with 2 engines on it.
This is the original.
Mr. Chair, the dimensions for the area which is referred to as the basin runs from a north to south orientation of about 192 feet. So effectively, from about, let's say, 50 feet, 75 feet offshore, it will go out to, it's about 50 feet offshore, I think. It would go out by another 192 feet towards the south. And then the east-west orientation would be of a dimension of about 505 feet. So it's effectively a rectangle oriented east-west. So it would be 192 feet. Sorry? Same dimension.
Mr.
One other question. What is the current measurement, maybe it's on the plans while you have them open up, between the shoreline and the reef? Because 192 plus 75 is
Sorry, can you clarify the questions?
the distance between the
Mr. Chair.
shoreline and the reef.
From the shoreline to the reef?
Yeah. You have that measurement.
I'm not sure that we have that information. Certainly not on the
But
on
you
the
would guess
drawings.
it's, what, 250?
Well, it's
250?
No, it's going to be more than, from the shoreline to the reef is going to be somewhere around 400 or 500 feet. And yes, and I just want to clarify for the record, Mr. Chair, let me just restate the dimensions because I now have the correct drawing, the revised drawing, which is slightly different from the numbers I gave a few minutes ago. Still oriented in the same way east-west, but the north-south dimension is 230 feet, and the east-west is 506 feet. So it is wider from a north-south perspective and very slightly longer.
And the channel, and the channel is going to come to this is how wide? Because
Mr. Chair.
just one through you, Mr. Chairman, this is located how far to the east of the channel?
The existing channel
Yeah,
into the
existing
bay.
channel to Maria.
We don't have an exact number, but we're talking about somewhere in the region of
Quarter mile.
perhaps more than a quarter mile, or in the region of a quarter mile.
So, and we are going to clean a channel from what comes into the reef up to this basin of about a quarter mile. Or are you saying that you already have 8 feet of water all the way up there? No, you have that. So you got to dig a channel to get to it.
But her application is in connection with fixing the shallow parts of the channel too.
Mr. Chair, There is an access channel which has been dredged in the past. There are a few areas within that channel where there are some shallow spots, but on the whole, you have areas where it's 6 to 7 feet deep. And obviously you'd have to be confined to specific areas, and it would have to be extremely well marked for boats to access the facility. But there is an existing channel through which access could be gained, and there is no dredging as a part of this application between the site of this facility and the channel.
But we know that they got to get 8-foot draft to the boat, so we just as well approve, you just as well know that you have to give them the ability to get to the basin, so they have to dredge the channel, at least in certain sections of it, if not the whole quarter-mile length. And I'm not, you know.
Mr. Chair, through you, I understand the member's question, and the answer is that in order to improve the access, that would have to be considered. Now, whether I'm being advised that the average channel depth is 6 feet, and that is
That's a 4-foot draft boat.
that would be adequate for most of the traffic that'd be anticipated there.
Not a 50-foot.
But it is quite possible that, you know, there may be a subsequent application which we haven't received, or it is possible, although government doesn't have the funds, it would be possible for government itself to fix the channel in the public interest to try to improve the navigability of that channel.
Just one final question. Through you, would the minister relook at the charges so that we see how much of this we can apply the $10 per cubic yard because it is pristine dredging that is not in that narrow channel that comes up through there now, so that we can get some more money out of it to the government? If we have two figures, one is $2 to $4 for areas that are already dredged. Obviously, I think we both will agree that this size is going to contain quite a substantial area that has not been dredged. So I'm wondering if you'll consider looking at it to recalculate the fee so that we apply the higher fee.
I understand the member's question, Mr. Chairman. And in response, I would say that, as the director has indicated previously, the DOE has looked at aerial photographs of the bay and the dredging footprint which existed in the past, and they have concluded that the basin as proposed is within the dredging footprint that occurred previously. And on that basis, that is why there was a consistent fee calculated in relation to the royalty mitigation fees.
Mr. McLean, Mr. Captain Eugene had been waiting for a follow-up question for quite a while now. Captain Eugene.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I want to make it abundantly clear that I have no objection to any kind of development in Cayman Brac as far as the marina is concerned. To the contrary, I'm happy to see something happening in the Brac. However, I think it's a downright atrocity that both of these projects would be approved, these applications would be approved since the Deadbridge application was in, and they have not had the chance to get theirs approved. Plus now what's going to happen is the BRAC is going to say, we don't need any more marina facilities, and they'll still be without a safe harbor. I don't, Mr. Chair, I just cannot comprehend how this could happen. Thank you.
Mr. McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a few questions that relate to this navigational area that this thing is going into. In the absence of the measurements from the shore to the reef, or more specifically to the navigational areas within the outer navigational areas. We talk about 230 plus 50, that's 280 feet from the shore. Am I to say that this is located adjoining Carib Sands?
Mr. Chairman, through you, that is correct. It is to the west of the Carib Sands development.
Okay. Okay. Having been through there, having been a person who was contracted to clear the channel in the 80s and watch the Scots with excavators at the same time dig that channel, unfortunately, they didn't take out the stuff. They just dumped it over to the side. Be that as it may. Enough of the stuff wasn't taken out. When you leave Carib Sand Dock, the east side of Carib Sand Dock, to navigate to that channel, you have to steer northwest. You have to steer northwest, southwest,
Right.
southwest for at least 1,000 feet, and then back to west.
Roughly.
I don't want to give an exact numbers, but there's a distance you have to steer, and you're down long past the place. We established that there's 280 feet off the line, off the shore, that the extreme east navigational area will be dredged out to. That was never dredged before.
Sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Chair, through you? Just so I'm
We have
clear
established-
on where you're going with this.
They establish that is 280 feet from the shore.
Correct.
The extreme navigational areas to the east. That has never been dredged before.
To the east of where this facility is proposed? No, sir, that has been dredged.
We are talking extremely close to those pan shells.
East or south?
East.
If you go east, you're going along the length of the lagoon. You're going towards Carib Sands.
No, that would be facing east. You're right. Would be south. Sorry.
Correct, yeah.
South. That has never been dredged before. Not 280 feet from the shore. Has
Mr. Chair,
never
all I
been
can
dredged.
tell the members is that it was compared to aerial photographs, and the footprint was overlaid to see what the impact was, and the conclusion was it was within the previously dredged areas.
Well,
And
can
just
you tell us what width the channel that was originally there dredged to?
I
The original one?
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I am being advised that the channel that was originally dredged per se was in the region of 125 to 150 feet, in some cases narrowing down to in the region of 100 feet. But of course, there was all the associated work around that, which would have damaged and changed the marine environment within the bay. So while it would have been anticipated that you would have an area of, say, 125 feet that you were trying to make sure had a certain navigable depth, there would have been work around it that would have compromised the bottom as well. And I would say I'd like to thank the director who, using some good old-fashioned scaling techniques on the map, has confirmed that the distance from the shore to the reef is approximately 500 feet.
I figured that was about it myself. I can tell you that when that was being dredged, they had excavators out there on a road from the beach, which they came in down by Brack Reef, just east of Brack Reef, whilst I was on the water drilling the channel next door. And they walked that up and dug that out and then carried the stuff shore. And I agree with you that the surrounding areas might have gotten damaged, but it was never dredged. I can assure you that. Now, it may look on the map like, because the sand sprayed out, remember I said the sand was not, all the sand was not brought shore because they couldn't take all of it out. So it appears like it was dredged. It was never dredged. And to put this here is going to go way over the dredged area. And if you want to dive it, I think if they had dove it, maybe they might have seen that. If they did, they should have seen that that's what it was. Because the reef there to the south then, right, the south, just past, which would be in front of this, it is, you have to come fairly close to shore to be able to navigate through there. Anyway, be that as it may. Mr. Chairman, I certainly would like to know the amount we use for per cubic yard or whatever the case may be for royalties. Because there have been many instances that I'm aware that we dredged in Cayman, and it has gone over $10. And I'm wondering why these numbers of $10 have come about, or how they have come about. But will the minister agree with me that placing that dock over 50 feet from the shore and over another set of turtle grass, that will kill that turtle grass too?
Mr. Chair, through you, it will likely have a very negative impact on it, or a negative impact on it. If it is removed mechanically in the dredging process, then obviously it's not going to be there. If it is underneath the dock or in the area where they do not plan and where we have set a condition that they do not dredge, then obviously it will remain intact. And the purpose of that, as I said earlier, is to prevent the beach erosion. There is another aspect of it, which is part of the recommendation of the Department of Environment, which is that sand, which is recovered as a part of the dredging process, should actually be placed on the beach as opposed to removed from site.
Well, that's got to be difficult. But anyway, is there a different rule, policy, process for dredging in Cayman Brack versus Grand Cayman?
Mr. Chairman, through you. There is not a different, there are consistent rules. This is the Cayman Islands, the Brac, Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. And the rules and the policies and the laws and the regulations which apply are applied and exist across the board for all islands.
For all intents and purposes, they should be equal and straight across the board, you're saying?
Yes, unless, for example, this Honorable House changes the law in a particular area. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
But in general, yes. I mean,
we're
it's-
getting a little bit too far ahead of ourselves there now, because that would have to come in the future to change the law. I don't know if anybody else want to ask any more questions on this particular two, but I want to go over to the other side where that one is. And I hear the minister saying that this channel on the other side is only about 30 feet wide, 40 feet wide? 32 feet wide. Are they going to do dive in there? Dive in? Dive resort, I'm asking.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, I'm not aware of the proposal for the upland development.
Well, so how do we determine the purpose of this thing? The purpose of this marina and the object?
Mr. Chair, there are two different processes. There is the Development Control Board planning process, which is relevant to proposals for development on the land, and there is the Coastal Works process, which is relevant to any proposal which impacts the Queen's Bottom, as it's called, or the shoreline. So the application that we have dealt with in connection with this is the Coastal Works application. Now, there has been an indication that they're proposing some upland development. We don't know what that is, but for these purposes, we're talking about a marine basin within the applicant's own property, within which they propose to have docking facilities, and the access to that marine basin for boats is through this channel.
Mr. Chairman, so I can ask for a dock to be built anywhere? Or don't I have to have a purpose for that? And will Cabinet give me approval for a dock without a purpose? A stated purpose?
Mr. Chair, through you, there are many Coastal Works applications that are made for docking facilities on properties. What else is it going to be used for? It's going to be used to dock boats. In this case, I'm advised that in fact, for this particular application, there has been an application made to the Development Control Board in Cayman Brac, and there is approval for a development.
So you're telling me that these applications are made in a vacuum when it relates one to the other?
What do you mean?
Because I cannot see, Mr. Chairman, the minister needs to try and explain it to me a little better than this. What I am understanding, and I may be wrong, Mr. Minister, I'm understanding that this applicant decided they wanted to dig out this place. That's it. and they wanted a coastal work license to dig it out.
Mr. Chairman, through you, this, I appreciate the members' difficulty. Not sure I completely follow it, though. We are not familiar with the context and the substance of the development that has been proposed.
What?
Right? It could be condos, it could be a house, we don't know. But the fact is, it is not unusual for applications to be received as coastal works applications to, for example, construct a dock on the coastline, on a canal. There are many of these things. It is not, you do not have to have planning approval for an upland development in order to have coastal works approval for example, a dock.
Mr. Chairman, so Cabinet is receiving applications along a canal for a dock. You mean it doesn't say a private boat dock?
Oh, there will usually be representations as to that, yes, private boat dock,
Thank you.
but it's a boat dock. Sorry?
Thank you. That means it is in a residential area and the intent is to build a home and your dock will be in your backyard. Thank you. Now, I am asking, what development is going to go there? It has to follow, Mr. Chairman, that the application for a coastal works license carries with it the reasons why they're building the dock. Or they want to bridge the iron shore. It goes without reason that it just follows. I mean, we look at Mr. Dilbert one. He wants to dig a channel in so he can bring boats in next to his hotel, plus kill the sand. There has to be some reason why this applicant, or they got just cut up everything coming back.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I believe I have indicated previously that we understand that this is part of a further development application. Now, I do think I misled this honorable committee as to one point earlier. The development, at least I will admit and correct, I said earlier that the Development Control Board had approved the upland application for whatever development it is. In fact, what they have approved is the Marina Basin, because it is within the individual's own property. So, and that is the upland development I'm referring to when I say that has been approved. Now that is in contrast, for example, to the Dilbert's application, which is proposed in relation to property which is not theirs, which is the Crown's property.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we pulling teeth or what, but something got a root on it that nobody wants to break off. Mr. Chairman.
Well, Mr. Chair, it's a matter of public record. We can't be misleading this House because you can go and find out from the DCB exactly what applications have been made. It's a matter of public record.
Mr. Chairman, what I am saying is that this is the first applicant in this country that does not explain to Cabinet why they want a coastal works license, and we have issued them too.
Mr. Chair, that representation is not accurate. The many applications coastal works applications are received to build a dock, for example. As I mentioned earlier, it's not a dock, but it is an inland basin on the individual's property. You have labeled it as a marina. I don't know that the individual applicant has labeled it as a marina. I have said that it is a facility which they want to build, which is not being advertised as a full-service marina. That is not necessarily the application that we have received.
Mr. Chairman, the minister said it's a matter of public record, so they can't be misleading the House. And I'm saying they're misleading the House, nor Finance Committee, but we're hiding something that we don't want come to light. Because, wait now, don't you touch nothing there.
Well,
Don't touch the dial.
don't
Mr.
say
Chairman,
we're hiding something.
Mr. Chairman,
If I could
You have to
ask,
defend
if I could ask,
your
if I could
indefensible
ask,
statements.
Mr. Pannon, if I could ask, that we-
indefensible statement, well, answer the questions and then
Gentlemen.
then I won't.
if I could ask that we try to maintain order. Mr. McLean, could you go right to the question, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I asked the minister if these people were doing dive operations in there.
Mr. Chairman, I have answered that. I do not know.
Well, I guess I ain't got no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Captain Eugene had been waiting for a supplementary question for quite some time, so.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not a question. I just want to say that I would wager a bet with any minister that within 1 year of that channel opening on the north side of the island, that there will be another application, or the channel will be widened, whether or not it's an application or not. I guarantee you that that channel will be widened within 1 year of it opening.
Thank you, Captain Eugene. Mr. Miller?
I got plenty of questions, but no, sorry too. The minister says that the reason they need to get the coastal works license to open this basin up, and what the reason they need 11 feet draft and not just something like we have on the bay condos in the north side, where it's just an opening for the sea to get into their lagoon. There's a need to bring boats in. Does he have another name for a basin that has a channel to it on which we're going to anchor and tie up boats that is not a marina?
Mr. Chairman, I suppose you could extend the definition of marina to include any dock.
Next question. Does the government believe, or is part of the consideration for granting this coastal works license, is that there is likely to be a commercial operation from this site linked to dive operations or fishing operations?
Mr. Chair, can we just clarify? I may have missed it. Was the member saying, do we know or do we believe?
Was part of the considerations for granting this coastal works license that there is likely to be?
No. No is the answer.
Okay.
That was not a consideration at all.
Okay. Does the license that has been issued, since there is no application for commercial, limit the application to private use?
Mr. Chair, I would have to look at the extract to confirm exactly what the conditions were. All of these issues have been very helpfully brought to to Finance Committee without any specific notice that this was going to be delved into in this kind of detail. I don't have those specific issues, but, sorry, I don't have those specific conditions to be able to confirm or otherwise state the position. But there are occasions in which perhaps approvals are granted with the stipulation that it is for private use. I don't recall whether this was one of the applications which made that representation, and therefore that condition was attached. Normally, that in my experience, which I will absolutely humbly admit that it's only been the last year that I'm familiar with this process, but normally that condition is attached when the applicant represents that is the purpose of the facility. Or I think there was one other instance in which I'm aware where the condition was attached to a dock which was along the full length of a residential lot. So there was concerns that it not be turned into a commercial operating facility in a residential area.
Mr. Miller, you have a follow-up question, sir?
Not in that particular area, but I have other areas that I want to question.
Mr. Chairman, I want to go back to that because to that particular area of purpose, I am stumped by the fact that Cabinet has no knowledge of why this thing is being, why and what is being applied for.
Is there a question there?
Mr. McLean, could you repeat
Oh, you
the
didn't hear
question?
a question?
Well, I'm not sure it was phrased as a question.
Okay. Does Cabinet know what or why these two applications in question are being applied for?
Mr. Chair, through you, the applications, as I recall, and I would have to look at the specifics, but the applications, as I recall, didn't specifically describe the way in which these facilities were going to be utilized. But in the context of the circumstances of these applications, given that they are within and adjacent to the property of the applicant, they could either be for the use of tenants or owners of adjacent development that may ultimately be done, or the dock space could be utilized by, for example, visiting boats. It could be commercially available.
But Mr. Chairman, we have established that the minister does not know. That has been established beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he doesn't know what he took in, nor what he approved. I am asking...
I wouldn't say that's accurate, sir, but you go ahead.
But you're saying
But you say I don't know what I took in or what I approved. That's very broad statements, which don't necessarily reflect what we've been discussing.
But Mr. Chairman, Now you have to explain that because he said he don't know what's there. I asked him a specific question. If they're going to use this for diving business, if diving business is going to be established in there, so that I can ask additional questions concerning the width of the channel. And the minister has said, in essence, that he doesn't know, but he is speculating that it might be used for adjoining landowners, something that might be built. Why then has Cabinet approved a project that the highest office in this land knows nothing of, or at least the purpose of it?
Mr. Chairman, if the member from West Bay would allow me to answer, I don't believe the question was directed to him, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bush, please.
Nowhere in the policy and process which has been adopted by Cabinet for quite a long time now, which certainly the member from West Bay and perhaps yourself, the member from East End, is quite familiar with, it does not stipulate as one of the requirements that there be some condition attached to the purpose of a dock, or that the applicant confirm the exact purpose. These are things that are typically represented when an application is made, but not necessarily in any kind of detail. I mean, a dock can be utilized by a boat, a charter boat going out on fishing expeditions. A dock can be utilized by a dive boat coming and going. It's for tying up boats. The boats can be utilized in different ways.
Mr.
Please, that's a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, that's a very good idea. We should go home and take this back up Wednesday, so I can prepare a little more for you. Mr. Chairman, I would ask the minister to tell us on what basis did his Department of Environment consider and review the application.
Are there
Mr. Chairman,
are there any further questions? I'm aware that we are losing members, and if possible. Mr. McLean, you asked a question. Mr. Pannan, are you able to answer?
Mr. Chairman, I think the question was on what basis was the review carried out by the Department of Environment?
Yes, and
Well, it is carried
to
out.
make their recommendation.
It is carried out as the Department of Environment's advisor to Cabinet. Any application that is received which involves which is a coastal works application will be referred to the Department of Environment for them to review it from a perspective of the environmental impacts, potential mitigation measures that may be taken, to understand what other additional information may be necessary in order to properly consider the application, to understand the full environmental impacts. And those are, they then, having received any information that perhaps is outstanding, they then complete their review and provide their advice to Cabinet, which is their role.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, we really, I beg you, we really need to go home. He say he only been there 1 year, I've been there 14. He lawyer, I'm not. But not all the time lawyer make politician, you know. Okay? Mr. Chairman, I am asking the minister what,
If politician is a bad thing, I'll take that as a positive compliment from you, sir. But anyway.
because you're not. Good. Mr. Chairman, the fact is I can think too. Mr. Chairman, my question to the minister was for what purpose they would have assessed this thing, this application, and say that these are the conditions that it must, if it is approved, this is it, that number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is using for? What? They didn't just pick it out of the sky, I am sure, unless it got fall on somebody's head. Why would they go to all the trouble to go to Cayman for a marina out in the middle of nowhere? It's just for that? There is no reasons for it? Because if that's the case, Mr. Chairman, we have a problem.
Mr. Miller, Mr. McLean, what is the specific question that the minister may answer, sir?
Mr. Chairman, I still ask the question, what was on that application for the purpose of this? Because every application under the DOE has the reasons and the purpose.
Mr. Panel, are you?
Mr. Chairman, I'm reading from a part of the application which states that the project will provide safe navigation to and from an inland boat lagoon, as well as adequate flushing for the inland boat lagoon and an inland swimming lagoon, both of which will promote marine recreational tourism and resident safe use of Cayman waters, as well as help promote local businesses. That is the general indication that we have had in connection with this application. But these applications, as I said, Mr. Chair, are separate and apart from applications for upland developments. So the two are often considered separately.
You know, Mr. Chairman, it is always said that half the truth is no truth at all. Maybe you could circulate. Wait, 1 minute. I ain't beating you up or anything. The same way you can read, I can read. Mr. Chairman, can we get copies of the recommendations from DOE with application, which went to DOE, and a copy, not of the cabinet paper, but the resolution from cabinet. With plans, everything. On Wednesday morning for both of those marinas that were given carte blanche approval.
Mr. McLean, I am conscious of the time, and I'm also conscious of the length of time that we have been spending on the various appropriations, and the fact that we will not return to the House until next week, Wednesday, and we still have several ministries and portfolios and offices to look at. So I will ask that, even though the members have asked for those papers to be provided, perhaps we will have an undertaking that those documents will be provided. But if at all possible, perhaps we could deal with the appropriation this evening.
Well, Mr. Chairman, one of the tie-ins just happens to be what the DOE has been doing in East End for the last 8 or so years. We're not wanting or having difficulties with me dredging out a bathing hole, 2 swim areas, and the lawn trap. So I don't know when we would get to those. But I need to tie those in somehow.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, in connection with the members' request for copies, certainly we'd be willing to try to copy everything and make it available to all members. But equally, it perhaps is more efficient if members would wish to indicate, or those members who would wish to actually review these applications, to perhaps arrange with the DOE to come and look at the applications and all the documentation they have there, to save having to duplicate everything and bring it down here for members, which is a pretty considerable task.
I am making members aware. The minister has proposed something. Are you all willing to visit the DOE for that purpose?
Bring it, Joe.
Mr. Chairman, providing you are not going to start at 10 on Wednesday, that would be fine.
Could you attend on Tuesday? And then we could still start at 10 on Wednesday.
Yeah.
On
Do Tuesday.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's easiest for you?
Mr. Chairman,
Can I
Mr. Chairman, these documents have been being read, paragraphs are being read from them, all these sort of things. I think that they owe the House to come here, bring the documents, and also to bring what was put into planning. Because they're reading one thing, but something else is in planning. I happen to know that, unless it's changed today. So I would ask them that they must bring it down here.
Mr. Chairman, maybe if the support, the staff could bring 2-3 plans here on Wednesday morning, like 9:30 or something like that. And then all the paperwork, the recommendations and applications, they can be copied. That can't be that much about these marinas now, as quick as they got approval.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I'm hearing members say, it appears that you all are amenable to DOE bringing a few copies and then doing a presentation in the large boardroom and committee room in there.
They can leave them in there and we'll go in there, yes.
And I'll ask for that to be done at 9 a.m. so that we would still be able to start at 10 a.m.
Okay,
next morning.
but the paper stuff now that he's reading from, he can do that and
Yeah.
so I can, yeah.
Copies.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, as I
One
said,
paragraph I've read.
the references have been made to planning, and we want to see what is put in the planning versus what they have.
But they wouldn't have authority over the planning documents. They wouldn't have
You
responsibility
got
for
from
those.
Cameron Brack. But they got it in Cameron Brack. Cameron Brack planning. Well, okay, but Cameron Brack planning has so much.
Okay. So the DOE will bring whatever documents they have that are in their possession, and I think that would not include the documents that were submitted to planning department.
Yeah, but the minister can request them. Both ministers, the minister responsible for Cameron Brack and the minister directly responsible for the environment. They don't say, but you can't do it. You authorize a
I
plan
never
out
said
there.
anything.
You authorize this woman to go dig up the whole Cameron Brack. And now you don't want to bring the plan down here. They got planning?
Okay.
Bring the plan.
I said earlier, Mr. Chair, that I have no idea what planning application the members
Mr.
are
Chairman,
referring to, but I will find out if there are any, and if I can get copies of that, I'll be happy to provide those.
good.
Mr. Bush, I think that's as good an undertaking as we can get. And I will give members notice that next week I hope to make greater progress. So I'm asking that next week we keep the preamble to a minimum, go directly to the questions, and for the government bench to be as specific as you can in your answers and as concise as possible so that we can really progress this finance committee proceedings in order to complete the budget and gazette the law in ample time before the June 30th deadline.
Mr. Chairman, if the government would stop pontificating and adding things into their answers that provokes questions, then it wouldn't be so long.
Okay, having said that, Mr. Bush, yes, sir?
If he's still responsible for the food, and he said no, because I'm having problems right now.
Let's do that. Let's do that off air. Not. Okay, gentlemen, it is now after 6 p.m. We will now adjourn proceedings. We will adjourn proceedings until 10 a.m. Wednesday morning, but we have agreed that we will return here for 9 a.m. in order for DOE to do the presentation on the various documents. Have a lovely weekend, and I wish you all a happy Father's Day for all of those fathers. Happy Father's Day, everyone.